I'm Roxanne.
And I'm Catherine.
It's two girls strong. It's two girls strong.
Today we're going to be talking about our decision to be child-free, where we started and how we came to that decision, as well as how that impacts our lives now. And I think I want to start the conversation by how it's actually such an unconscious decision, like a set default way of being and thinking that having a child is expected.
Yeah, for sure. I just assumed that was going to be part of my life path. Having a child, I never questioned it. I assumed, even though my family structure is untraditional, I always knew I was gay. Because I'm a woman, I expected that I was going to have a child. And I even started planning financially for that. I think I said that in a few episodes back, that when I set up my retirement account, I set up a savings account just to save for adoption or whatever process I was going to undertake to have a kid. So it was just a subconscious thing, like that's going to be part of my life. It's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And you know how there's like this narrative that young girls can picture their wedding, they start planning their wedding at an early age. And I don't think that's true for me. Like I didn't think of my partner, whether it was a man or woman. I didn't really think about that, but I know that I thought about having kids and being pregnant. And really, it's quite glorified, pregnancy specifically. I think there's like a glorification and a romanticized view of pregnancy and and being a mom. The reality of pregnancy and being a mother isn't, and being a parent, specifically a primary caregiving parent, in the media, and that is quite rose-tinted. I think quite recently that's been shifting. But as a child, I definitely saw myself being pregnant, having a baby. I loved playing with dolls. I like baby dolls and Barbie dolls, and my Barbie dolls had baby dolls. So I really envisioned that for myself, to the point where I think it was a little bit weird, to be honest. When I was about 12 years old, I would choose lotions that had elasticity in them, so that I was like preparing my body for pregnancy and expanding. I would get things that would help reduce the impact of stretching my skin when I was 12 years old.
And what informed that way of thinking? Like, how did you even know about stretch marks and pregnancy? Like, I think that only came into my periphery or into my mind much later in life, that I connected stretch marks with pregnancy. So how did that happen for you?
I don't know. Maybe it's like between the ages of, no, I think it was really young. I think it was like in the 12, preteen to 14, those ages. I don't know. I really can't tell you specifically. I know that I enjoyed playing with dolls. I don't know where this, I think I just saw that this was for pregnant women. There was like a drawing of, I can see the lotion in my mind. I saw the drawing of a pregnant woman on the cover of the lotion. And I think that was like that. And it said, this is to reduce stretch marks. And maybe it was also already, by the time in general with my body, critique of my own body around the stretch marks that were starting to form on my body. And so maybe those things coincided. But I think it's a bit weird because it's not even that I had boyfriends or any kind of things that made sense to that. I used to watch this story called Birth Stories, where you would watch births, and I really enjoyed watching that show, and it was very fascinating for me. But it didn't make sense to any other part of my life, but it was like a thing that I thought about way more than I looking back would have liked to be thinking, like what consumed my thoughts.
Yeah. I think for me, the first time the rose tinted shades were taken off was I must have been 11 years old, and I was in the library and I looked at a book about childbirth. And I remember opening the book and then looking at these pages, and they had different um, photos of the different stages of childbirth, but they must have been like over 50. And I looked at it and I couldn't understand what I was looking at because it just like nothing made sense. I couldn't understand what I was looking at, right? And then suddenly it dawned on me when I saw all the blood and I realized what I was seeing, and it looked so frightening. I, as a maybe 12-year old or something, or 11, I was shocked because no one had told me how hectic childbirth is. So that's the first time I think the the rose tinted shades dropped. But to be honest, it didn't like change my view of whether I was going to be a mom or not. In my mind, I was still going to be a mom. And but another moment like that was my cousin had given birth and we went to a maternity ward, and I remember going to the maternity ward and thinking, oh, what an amazing fun place. And when I got there, I just heard women screaming and shrieking, and it was like the most like spine chilling screams I'd ever heard. And then again, that's a moment where it like clicked that this is not what everyone has told me it's like cracked up to be, you know? So I started kind of realizing that there's like a real side to it, or, you know, like a less glamorous side to it at least.
Yeah, I think I responded to that information quite differently. I think it still fascinated me. I thought it was still just incredible, and it is. It is incredible. It is a miracle, and there's so much that goes unsaid that women experience during pregnancy. But as I grew up and I came out and I was queer, I think it was also, I didn't shift too much in terms of wanting to be a parent. I started opening up to the idea of maybe adoption as a way of becoming a parent, not only becoming a parent through pregnancy, but it was still very much an unquestioned part of how I envisioned my life. Similar, honestly, to getting married. I didn't actually question whether I wanted the reality of having and being a parent and of being a parent.
Yeah. So when did you really start questioning? At which age would you say you actually started to question whether you want a child or not?
I think it was, to be very honest, like when we started dating and the reality of us being very serious started, and we started talking about how we want to envision our lives. But even before that, I would say in my early 20s, I started making friends, and I was friends with other people who were parents, and I watched my friends going through pregnancy, and that more than like the documentaries and things that I used to watch, it really lifted the rose tinted glasses that I had. And they were so honest about the experiences, and even to this day people are really open and honest about where they're at and how hard and beautiful, but how hard it is. And then there's also experience of pregnancy loss, and that goes unsaid. But I think those years of just looking at what it means to be a parent, what it means to become a parent, through real stories, made me look at it more honest, look at that path more honestly. And so when we started dating, I was still very much in that state of not questioning it. And we started thinking about what it is that we want for our lives. And I started asking myself, okay, you had your position, and I had to think about myself and think about what it is that I want for my life, how I want to live my life. And I knew that I want children in my life. I'm very good with kids. I love kids. I enjoy being around them. But I looked at the reality of what it means to be a parent, and I take it super seriously. and recognized the gravity of that decision, and that didn't align with how I was envisioning my life. What about you?
Yeah, the same. I only started questioning it, I'd say, in my mid to late 20s. I really started to think, like, is this something I want? And we had traveled for a bit, and we were, yeah, obviously getting quite serious. And I thought about the seriousness, similar to you, the seriousness of having a child, what it entails, the commitment, the emotional commitment, the physical commitment, the financial commitment. Um, and I do think it's a beautiful thing. And like you, I love kids, I love babies, and we love babysitting our friends' babies. But I realized that it just wasn't something that I needed to complete my life or to feel that I was living a full life, you know? And I always feel like I must say that I respect parenthood because I am not one of those child free people who's like, if parents and like calling children crotch goblins. I don't like that business of like being anti child. It's just not for me. and I respect parents. You know, I respect what it is that they do, and that's exactly why I'm not doing it.
And I think in that stage, before, like having these conversations was so important, especially when we were getting towards us making a decision about getting married and making that commitment in our partnership, that we needed to be on the same page with that. And if if we weren't going to get to the same page, that means we needed to end, and would have been sad, but that's what it would have required. Because I think, and I observe I observe that some people take the decision in the hopes that the partner will change their mind in the future, and then that doesn't come, and then someone has to compromise, and it's a big, big compromise. And I think if you're not on the same page there, then that's a big red flag in terms of the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, 100%. You have to share the same values, and having a child is probably the biggest thing that you can do as a couple. It's the biggest undertaking, and it requires both of you to contribute and to be on the same page. And it puts a strain on the relationship. So you really have to both be committed to this task and to this, because it's work. And I think especially in those early years, it can take away maybe from the romance because you're focusing on like growing a human being, and so yeah, you have to be on the same page for it. I think you have to both be firmly committed. And yeah, again, this decision was made also because if I'm going to be a parent, I want to be a good parent, which means I must be fully present and fully committed to my child, and also know that I come second. Like, if I'm going to be a parent, I know that for me, the type of parent that I would be is that I'd have to be second to my child. My child's needs come first, always. So if I'm having a bad day, like, too bad, like, I have to be there for my child. I can't sleep in. I can't, like, you know what I mean? Like, I have to be there. And I just realized, I don't know if I can do that. And I don't want to be resentful to my child, do you know? And that's like, I guess in some ways, maybe it is a selfish decision, but I would rather be selfish than make a decision because I feel pressure and then feel resentful and not be present for the child, you know, and not show up the way I should. I'd rather like take the flack for being more like for being self-involved in my decision. I'd rather do that than like have a child in the world that is not getting 100% of what they deserve.
Yeah. I think I also just want to make a note that because we're just talking about our experience, that we also recognize that there's different kinds of families, how people become parents is varied, and some people are single parents, and that is just honestly we should be giving single parents awards every day for what they do and how they show up for their kids. And I agree with you around like the decision around how you feel, like that feeling, the decision around that feeling of resentment, and if there's a possibility of that, and really then sitting with that, what would that mean for you, and whether you're in a partnership or not. And yeah, I think it's also super sad when parents, especially moms, get let go in that extremely vulnerable state.
What do you mean let go?
Become single parents, not by choice, like they in a relationship and get left, or both parents, and that's not just moms, all kinds of people who end up being single parents. Sometimes siblings become parents also, right? But it's a massive one, and that's not always a choice as well.
Yeah.
But just recognizing that in this conversation, and then coming back to us around just really understanding the gravity.
Yes. And also like knowing that kids are amazing. Like there's some things that I'm never gonna understand. Like we're speaking also about parenthood, like this is how we imagine parenthood to be. But I'm also so sure that it's not smooth sailing. Even if you go in it 100%, like it's just not smooth sailing. It's a lifelong endeavor. So I understand that, and I understand that there are things about parenthood and about what that feels like that I will just never comprehend because I don't have a child. Like I think that there's a level of love that I won't understand that you can have for a child, for someone that you feel so protective of, that you've seen since they were inside you, or since they were tiny and they were completely dependent on you. Like, and then the joy when they speak for the first time, or when you snuggle them, or they make their first joke. Like those are things I won't understand. But yeah, like knowing that I'm still comfortable with my decision, like I'm still happy with my decision. But yeah.
Yes, it's funny because the other day we saw a super cute baby, and you were joking, and I know you were just making this lovely joke, cute light joke, that because the baby was smelling so good and being so sweet, and he was saying, oh, when you hold a baby and they're so cute, you really start questioning your decision to be child-free. And I'm like, no, no. But we were just joking around. But I was like, no. I am very solid in the decision because it's like I get to enjoy the delights and then also enjoy the delight of my peace that I have, and my selfish, if it needs to be called that, desire to have my focus be on me and you, and that's it, on another adult.
Yes. Oh, they do. They have their little feet, their tiny little feet, and their tiny little socks, and their little hands, and they just always smell so good. Like kids are, and when they are toddlers and they start saying funny things, they're such a delight. So yeah, the kids are wonderful. But speaking about this idea that if you don't have kids, that you are somehow selfish, like let's also maybe touch on this idea of your validity, like as an adult, like a serious adult, when you don't have kids. Because I feel it sometimes. I feel that divide between my friends who have children and me now, us who we don't have kids. And I think a lot of it is self-imposed, because I will say that none of my friends make me feel like I'm less valid for not having children. But I do recognize that our problems are different, like I don't have in the back of my mind another human being. Of course I care for you, but like I don't have a human being I don't have another human being that's completely dependent on me at the back of my mind all the time. So there's that difference, and I feel that sometimes. And so there is maybe like a feeling of your problems are more serious, or that you are a more serious adult, Like, why do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. There's like two things that I experience now, that the decision is final and there's a full stop. There's like the experience of, actually 3 now, the validity of being an adult, because there's like, but people describe that when you're child free, you have this Peter Pan way of living and you're never going to grow up. And to be honest, in a way, we get the freedom to like play, not because our children are playing. We get to play games and be funny and fun and silly and do childlike things just because for no reason, not because of playing for another child, which happens as well. And I think at the same time, I know that I take myself seriously as well, but I think I can get that balance of having playfulness and taking myself seriously in my work, in the way that I conduct my life, the way that I manage my life, the way that I move forward. I take myself seriously. And you know what? If anyone doesn't, that's fine. If they see the playfulness as frivolous, that's up to them. But I think the other 2 areas is also womanhood, like your womanhood. And this is not just of people who have decided, but I think whether your womanhood, how credible and valid you are as a woman when you decide not to have children or not having children.
Yeah.
Maybe whether you've made the decision or not, maybe that's just happened. And then us as a family unit.
Yeah.
What do you think about those 2 other areas, the womanhood and the family unit?
Well, you know, if I'm completely honest, when I was a child, or maybe even a young teenager, being raised in a Christian environment where the expectation for children, it wasn't something that was put on me all the time. Like, it wasn't something that was directly told to me, but it was a subconscious thing of like, that's the path that you must take. So when I met women who didn't have children, there was a part of me that judged that, like, oh, maybe they're not nurturing or they don't like. So I had that judgment. And that judgment stayed with me for a long time. Like, I'm a bit ashamed to say that I judged women who didn't have children. And then as I got older and I started to really think about that, like, I was like, I don't want children either. And that doesn't make me any less nurturing or loving or capable of love, you know? I think, yeah, a lot of your identity as a woman is placed in motherhood, being nurturing, but also your ability to sacrifice. Like, I know this narrative, I see it with the women in my family, that being a mother means to sacrifice so much of yourself. And maybe that's also what made me question being a mom, because I've been socialized to think that being a mother is to suffer, not because inherently it is to suffer, but this idea of like being a strong woman, sacrificing for your children, that you must like do everything despite all the pain you're feeling. Like, that's the experience that I saw of motherhood. And I don't think that is what my mother would also want for me. You know, I don't think she would want me to suffer just for the sake. I know she would want me to have kids, I'm sure. I maybe, I don't know. Mom. but like, I want to break those generational curses of like women. Yes, I mean those I want to break those generational expectations that to be a mother and to be a woman is to suffer and to sacrifice. I think that it can happen whether you have children or not. It doesn't have to be that. But I think that that's maybe what deterred me a little bit.
Yeah, and that too. And there's like an external experience of that being questioned constantly. And I know, especially with our straight friends, getting asked about if they haven't had children or they're choosing not to have children at all, when you're going to have children. And one friend even told us that it's like, without exaggerating, that's a weekly thing that happens. And they were saying on the first level, that's okay. But when it goes to the point of, it's fine, you're going to change your mind, like, that is insulting to the agency as well.
Yes. And it's wildly inappropriate for people to constantly pressure someone else to have a child. Like the oh, when are we gonna have babies? When also for straight people,
Yeah.
when are you gonna get married? When are you gonna have babies? Like this constant um questioning. And like that's one thing I'll say I feel kind of bummed out for straight people that they have to deal with is the expectation that comes with being in a heteronormative couple is that people are constantly feel that it's it's their business to ask you when you're going to get married and when are you going to have kids. And I think it's inappropriate unless you are close friends and you can like have a moment to be, oh, so what do you guys think about having children? I don't mind that.
Yes, I totally agree. The approach that's taken matters so much. The approach to the conversation and the nature of your relationship, whether you're close enough to be asking about personal questions. These are personal questions. And not going further to question or discredit when someone's made a decision, like asking deeper why when your relationship isn't close enough for those kinds of conversations, or being like, okay, you'll change your mind, you don't know what you, and it's quite patronizing as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. And what do you think about showing up as a family unit, like being a family if you don't have children? Because I think for me and you, that was also a journey to like know that we are a family unit, just a different kind of family, you know? So, for example, having Christmases sometimes where it's just me and you, or like doing things like not only attaching ourselves to our parents' family, but establishing us as a family with our own traditions and our own way of life. Like, what is your experience of that, especially not having kids?
Yeah, I think it's uncomfortable. I think it is like because it's not that reason. Like the kid is like the reason to have that boundary or that unit, and now it's difficult. Well, I found it difficult to do that and not have this like accepted reason. And sometimes there's not a reason. It's just because we are family and we want to just do our thing together. And I think it was just a matter of getting through that discomfort, and then you show people that. I think you show the rest of your family how you want to be seen as a family unit. But it wasn't easy for me. It was something I needed to be very conscious of. For
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, same. And I think also just being comfortable with the fact that because we want to is a good enough reason, you know, there doesn't have to be like a whole rigmarole. So if we don't, like, if we want to do certain things because we want to do it, is fine also. Um, And I think that's kind of like a through line with this whole being child free is that you really have to be kind of certain in your decision and who you are and be okay with like how you're going to be perceived because of it. It is like a bit of a hurdle that you have to jump over. But for me, it's worth it because I have the peace of mind knowing I've made the right decision.
Yeah, totally. And even in this conversation, and I feel it, I feel that we've spent most of the conversation almost justifying our decision to be child free and thinking about the reasons that we're not, because it's kind of taboo still. It's still very much a taboo, even though it's a global I don't want to say trend, but it's the decision is becoming more common to be child free. It's not new though, but I sort of want to give ourselves permission now and know that it's like without judgment to any other's decision. Like, I want to hear what are your joys, the joys that you get out of being child free.
Yeah, for me, I think maybe first of all, the peace I have knowing that I've made the right decision for myself. Then also, I think having agency over my time and also knowing that everything isn't that serious. You know that if things fall apart, I only really have me to take care of. Of course, I have to consider our relationship too. But you're an adult and you are independent and you have your own stuff going on. But knowing that I don't have another human being depending on me also gives me a little bit more like it just takes a load off,
Yes.
like and sometimes I try to remember that because I do feel like it does still feel heavy because I think I'll only really understand it if I had a child. But yeah, I think that and having freedom over my time.
Yeah.
And you?
Yes, no, I agree fully with all of that. And I think it's also I really enjoy the space to think about myself and think about and I think just in this conversation and now as I'm saying that, like thinking about where I started really living life on autopilot and now not doing that, really reflecting on how I want the short term and long term to be and what I want for myself. I have the space to do that. Again, of course, we consider each other and all of that, but it's really wonderful to have that space. And it's nice to have the freedom of movement and quietness as well when you want quietness, sleeping in, not sleeping in, that kind of freedom. I really enjoy that. And like spontaneity as well.
Yes, and also like having nice things in the house because I know when we were kids, we couldn't have nice things in the house. Like it would destroy everything. Like if my mom put something nice together, like I remember, like we just messed a lot when we were kids, and we broke things.
That's why we can't have nice things.
Yes, and I that's it. Yeah, it's nice to not have that worry, I think. Um,
And I think another thing for me, sorry, I cut you off there, but another thing for me is also um, the enjoyment, the experience of enjoying children
yeah.
when it's not my children. Like I mentioned it
Yes.
earlier in this conversation, but I really love that. I really love having kids in my life and just having the fun moments. Listen, I'm a serious auntie also, hey? Like I'm not just fun and go lucky. Like I'm a fun aunt, but I'm also listen to your parents auntie, and I enjoy that. And but I also enjoy the distance and of the responsibility, the like
Yes.
the ability to make a decision whether I'm gonna be all in auntie or if I'm gonna be a wine on the balcony auntie.
Exactly. Yeah, and one more thing I think is also I think the financial freedom. There's like a whole other thing that we're not worried about, and so it gives us more headroom to think about other things because we're not worried about this big thing in our lives. So there's time for creativity. There's money to spend on random shit like VR headsets, for example. There's this whole big thing that we're not worrying about, and so
For
that's really
ourselves. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And so yeah, there's just like a lot of freedom with that.
Yeah.
And there's also an appreciation of the freedom. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And but I also really love being the child-free friend as well. I love it when we bring our friends who have the massive responsibility of being parents and they're able to step out of that, come into our space, and we make them cocktails, and it's just us chatting about life and whatever comes up, what's happening in the world. But it's just like the space for them to just look your parent all the time, but that space where it's like they can just be. I love doing that. And then also that's also why I love babysitting for our friends. But yeah, I just love creating that space and taking my friends dancing and doing those things.
Yes, I also really enjoy that when our friends come over and they can unwind and they can have drinks with us and we treat them. So because we know
Yeah, we see.
and we have a song for it. Mom is going out. Mom.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think um especially in that time when I was thinking and trying to step outside of like anchoring you in with how I want to experience my life. What I really appreciated was seeing videos and listening to the stories of older women who have made that decision to be child free, and seeing the joy of their life, seeing that they're not lonely, that they have strong support networks, how their friends show up for them, and their families show up for them, and how, yeah, that was very important for me. And so I did want us to share the joys of this, because it's hard to be confronted with the questioning externally constantly. But coming back to that agency, coming back to trusting yourself in your decision and knowing yourself and what you want for
Yeah.
yourself.
Because I think ultimately, when you go into this decision, whether it is to have children or not to have children, but you go in the decision with knowledge and you make the right decision for you, I think that's a really great starting point for a happy life. You know, is that you must make the right decision for you. And so I'm happy with this decision. And I'm also happy for parents who have thought about it and said, I still want to do it anyway. Like, I'm happy for them, and I wish them a great future. And it's really amazing to see older lesbians who haven't had kids and see like what they like. We went to a 70th recently of a older queer woman, and to see what her life looks like, and that she does have young people. I mean, we were there even, like young people around her. So it can be really beautiful if you foster community and you do all of that stuff. It can be a beautiful thing too. So yeah, overall I feel like joy in my decision, and I feel good. And you?
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts?
Completely. I think my final thoughts is really, and it's going to be a thread throughout these conversations, and it's going to be something I will repeat a lot, because I think ask myself this question often, is to give yourself the gift of pausing and asking yourself, how do I want to experience my life? And whatever that answer is, allow it, trust it, go with it, listen to your intuition, and not be so stuck on the projected expectations that are put on us. And also, let's just stop with the over investigating of people's reasoning of when they come to decisions that they've made for themselves. Like, allow that, and love each other and love ourselves.
Very well said.
Lovely. Thanks for joining us on the Two Girls Strong podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can connect with us on Instagram at 2girlsstrong, or email us at 2girlsstrong@gmail.com, and that's with one S. See you next time!